No, Emily is going to get married in August, right, Emily? Yes, and
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
and we're all invited. Emily, Emily, just in case you have any questions or comments, feel free to just raise your hand and ask.
How are your parents?
My parents? They're okay. Yeah. They're okay. I think so. I'm sorry?
Are you feeling better today?
No, but I'm trying to wear the best mask possible. Hopefully tonight's class will be a little bit different than, all these past weeks. Yeah. So anything new with any of you since last night? Did you eat those pizzas that fell on the ground?
No, I did not.
Whose fault was that?
I think it was mine.
Yeah.
I had them weirdly positioned. And so when I hand them off to her,
It just slid.
it just slid. So it was my fault.
Yes, of course.
And that bit that I didn't need to eat the rest of the day.
That's true. Yeah. All that cheese,
Yeah, all that cheese.
processed.
Yeah, would have went to the bathroom. All the way.
Thank you. That's nice set of images.
I didn't buy a bag of that punchy stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't buy a bag of that punchy stuff. Told me about high cholesterol and all that. I didn't buy it.
Yeah, good for
I
you.
didn't buy it.
Yeah.
I thought it was professor. I'm gonna buy it.
At our age,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, just eat carrots and broccoli.
You had to catch up.
This is Cassie.
Hi, Cassie.
She's the person I told you about. Stephanie, how are the kids? You have two girls, right?
Yes.
There are two little boys there. Maybe we could. That's what we do in Persian, Like, you're my sister, I have a son, you have a daughter, and my son is like 2 months old, and your daughter is a month old, and we just get them married right there and then. All right, but anyways, this is Cassie. She's the one who posts all the audios and makes all the videos and the commentaries. She was in my class some
23.
yeah, she was 17, she's now 40. She has two husbands. She has a husband and a daughter, and they live in Sacramento, or she lives in Sacramento. This is Stacy. She is Stacy. She works with old people who are very close to just being dead. I've known her for a while now, no? 10, 15, 20 years? Makai,
Hello. How you doing?
how are you?
Pretty good.
Makai, can you leave that door open or put something or a chair? Well, that's, yeah.
Light.
That's Joyce. She was in the class some years ago. That is Sarah. She's my wife. And that's Yusuf. He's the next Cristiano Ronaldo. Hello, Elijah. And that's his friend Ethan.
Oh, no project.
So, do you have any questions, any comments before we go home? Elijah, you okay? You haven't been feeling good the past like couple times. That's okay. I'm just saying that. Take care of yourself. Oh, yeah. Hello. Joyce, you okay? Well, very much like last night, I have nothing to say. Maybe we can start with some questions and just go from there. Stephanie. Stephanie. Death?
And it just made me curious because I work in a college in a college clinic. So I feel like a lot of patients that I get pretty close to them because they come often. And like suddenly, like I see them like every week or every 2 weeks. Suddenly like, I get a message that oh, this patient died. Like really often that happens. And I was just wondering if that can have to
That what?
I guess that could eventually have like an effect on myself or others.
I had a friend, Jean Coffey. She was an RN, and at a certain point in her career, she moved to ICU. And by the time she moved to ICU, she had gotten married and she had a son. And the story she told me, because she worked with lots of young people as well as some old folks, that was really, really intense 12-hour shifts, just working with people who are just an intensive unit. She said she would go home, lock herself in the closet for about maybe 45 minutes and cry because it was just too much for her. She was very, very sensitive. And after 45 minutes, she would come out and just go downstairs and just be the wife and the mother and, to some extent, it has to do with one of the things about us is that we actually do have the capacity to endure a lot of pain. We're very resilient. And after a while, you become numb to the fact that someone is just in pain and dying. And it also has to do with how intimate you are with the people you're working with. Sometimes there is a patient to whom you're just attracted, and we don't know why. There's just something about the way they look. Maybe they're just feeble, vulnerable in some ways, and that attracts you. And so you spend more time and you think about them more. And so their passing impacts you a bit more than other folks. Will there come a time where you're just indifferent towards people's birth and death? I think so. It also depends on how new you are to your profession. Stacy has been working with the death and dying for a long, long time. And from what little she tells me is that every morning when she gets up to go to work, she actually enjoys people dying. I mean, she celebrates it. She doesn't like people very much. But that's not the way she began. After like 20, 30 years of working with people. And I think our bodies and mind just have the intelligence to shut down and not care as much, which is really good. Hello. What was your name? Okay. Sorry for that. I just, yeah.
There be attachments, like, you know, working with somebody's gonna die, you ever get attached to them and kind of bother you, and, you know, emotionally, you know, you still feel anything like that, emotionally, about anybody that's passed, if you kind of like it as a person, you know what I mean? So, you know,
Well, she doesn't like to be attached.
oh, she don't like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, that's good, because you don't have that emotion, that.
Yeah, she has no emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna live working that kind of. You know.
I mean, the only way you can survive,
Yeah.
you know, living amongst people is just not to have any emotions.
That's hard. Yeah, I guess. If
She's
I
like a
had to-
saintess.
I had to, I guess I would.
Sure, Elijah.
So I think it may have been like 2 weeks ago. You had briefly mentioned when I guess people who live in like really cold climates that they're accustomed to those cold climates when they need to transition from one area to another.
Hello. From Vacaville? Oh. See, only Christians can make such sacrifices.
That's actually.
Yes, Elijah, go ahead, sorry.
So I'm not sure if this is like a more recent thing or this is like a long time ago, but you had mentioned when people, mothers who may have like 4 children that all need to be breastfed, if they can't breastfeed one of those children, they would leave them to die, but they don't have like it's not like a big emotional thing for them. Is that, like, when did that kind of stop happening in society? Or is that just like kind of certain areas?
In Japan, there is, as far as I know, what is that? I like iced tea. In Japan, there is no word for I. I doesn't exist. I think when you are engaged in environments where people don't see themselves as individuals, but rather a member of a community, it's very difficult for them to talk about themselves and their emotions and their pursuits. You know, it's what they call a shame culture. Shame cultures have a tendency of dismissing who and what they are for the most part. They don't talk about their emotions. They don't talk about their past. They don't talk about their accomplishments. It doesn't mean that you can't find a black sheep out there somewhere where they just self-indulge, but for the most part in such communities, New Guinea, for example, you know, you can't talk about yourself and you can't talk about your emotions. And just in case you throw a fit of anger, you may be 70, 80, 90, someone in your community will tell you, just go sit in the corner, you know, cool off and then come back. I think the moment a culture becomes a bit more confessional, where everybody assumes that their life is interesting and valuable and it merits other people's ears and time, then what you have is people begin to self-indulge and take themselves a bit too seriously. I mean, just think about the rise of therapists. I mean, that's the new religion, psychology and therapy and all those things. And the therapists happen to be the new clergy. Why exactly would you go to a therapist shop? Because you think your emotions are important, because there are things you need to get over, And the truth is, for the longest time in our history, that wasn't our case. Consider all the way before the maybe 16th, 17th century. Your father would go out into a battlefield and never come home. In fact, he would just go out and not come back, period. And you have no idea if it's dead, if he's running off with another woman, whatever the case may be. But you would have no therapy in regards to not having a father. You would not have emotions of anger or feeling betrayed. It was just the way life was. Life is tough. Your parents can be taken away from you at any time. Nobody has like a father issue or a mother issue or parent issues. These are just relatively new. And the culture creates that. One of the... No, it's... Yeah. One of the things that... Let me ask you a question. If, for example, Malcolm X was to resurrect from the dead and be around, say, 45, 50, and if you went up to him and asked him to be his friend, what exactly would you talk to him about? Yourself? Your life? Your past? Your future? No, Malcolm X has a bigger agenda. He has a world to take care of, and you're not in it. And all of a sudden, something will happen when you hang out with giants, is that you dismiss most of the person that you are. It's actually quite embarrassing and shameful for you to say, Malcolm, let me tell you about my past. Nobody cares, especially him. So we can only talk about, I suppose, the smallness of our lives with people who are as small as we are. I can't go to Socrates and tell him, so listen, Socrates or Jesus or Buddha, my father did A, B, C, D. He wouldn't care. He'd probably sit me down and say, let me tell you what the first noble truth is. If I was to badmouth my father, for example, Confucius would say to me, well, let me tell you the best ways to be able to live a good life. Regardless of what your father does, you must always respect and honor him. Which means what? Every time this emotion comes up where you want to kind of express, your negative emotions about your father, you push it down. It doesn't come up. And so I had this shaving machine in my face, in my hand this morning, and the reason was I looked myself in the mirror and I said, man, it's time for you to shave. Then the water heater broke. So I drove to Home Depot, grabbed, water heater, went back to the house and put the new one in there. And I forgot all about my face. And it's only when Cassie and Stacy came to my office around 4:30, they look at me and say, Amir, you look bad. Then all of a sudden I remember, how bad I look. And that's the thing, that when you're around people, when you're around mirrors that reflect back how pathetic you are, how small you are, then of course, all you want to do is think and talk about yourself. If on the other hand, you hang out with a different kind of a mirror that looks at you and says you're part of this social milieu, that there is justice, inequality or equality, all those big concepts and pursuits, all of a sudden you really begin to forget the small emotions and the small history that you have. One of the nice things about Galileo and his idea that, that the earth is this tiny little spot in the middle of nowhere, is that if you take his ideas very, very seriously, your issues don't matter. It doesn't matter to the universe. It doesn't matter to the cosmos. And the truth is, it shouldn't even matter to you. Your issues. And when you don't talk about your issues, basically they disappear. And it's not like today where everybody just pushes down, represses their emotions. That's not the way things were for the longest time in our history. So you have some issues in your life, you take them to church. It's finished. Man, you can't even talk about them. Society won't allow you. When I was growing up in Iran and we had gatherings where people, relatives would come over and we would talk religion and politics. Us kids, we were not allowed to talk. You just sit and listen to the people who are like 3 times your age, 4 times your age. And you can never raise your hand and say, well, what about me? I have some ideas. Nobody cares. You're just a kid. You're just a kid, Elijah. Your issues don't mean anything. If you want your issues to mean something, inherit issues from the giants of humanity. Gilgamesh, the Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad. These are the people you want to hang out with. Because as long as you hang out with small people, well, you'll just remain small. I mean, small pursuits, small desires, those things. The question people asked about sex and the body of a woman, if you bring it down to the world of advertisements, you're not going to reflect too much about who and what you are as a woman. If on the other hand, we talk about some of the cults that used to exist in the ancient world, about how they would perceive a woman, how they would train a woman, how they would use sex as a tool, then everything about you will, if you happen to be in the right place in life, then sometimes if you go to a party and you see a man, and you happen to be somewhat attracted to a man, all of a sudden these ideas will kind of jump in, impose themselves upon you. And all of a sudden your brain chemistry changes, your perspective changes, and the moment you want to walk, you kind of just walk back. Does that? Maybe not. Matt?
So, so Marcus Aurelius, right?
Sure.
He's a warrior and an emperor by day, and then a philosopher by night. Is one of those a mask? Are both of those masks? Is like the emperor side of him, a mask that he's been trained to wear? Go out, be an emperor, conquer everything? Or is the philosopher side of him something he was trained as a mask to wear?
Imagine you're an artist, but you're a poor artist in the sense that you don't make your livelihood by painting and sketching. You don't have the fame, you don't have the proper connections, but you need to pay rent and you need to put food on the table. So what you do from 9 to 5, you work at In-N-Out, let's just say, okay? Because you know how important it is. You know the value of money, you know the value of shelter, you know the value of food, you know the value of healthcare and those things. And then 5 o'clock comes about, you clock out and you go home. You take a shower, you eat some food, and then you go to the room and you begin to paint and sketch. Is working at In-N-Out a mask for you? No, you understand your position in life really, really well. There did come a point for Marcus Aurelius where he just didn't want to be an emperor anymore. He wanted to kind of just hand off the baton to someone else. But it was a little too late for him, So I think you understand yourself as, this idea that give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. So you understand that you're very creative, that you're an artist, you're a pianist, but you can't play the piano from 9 to 5 because you will lose your job. So what you do is you put piano on pause. And piano happens to be this gift that has been given to you, either by life or by God, whichever you prefer. It doesn't really matter, okay? But you also know that should you not make any money, eventually you will lose your home and there goes your piano. Okay? You will have no bread and no one is going to be a great artist if their stomach is crying for food, okay? So what you do is you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Your body is part of the world of Caesar. It needs food, shelter, and clothing. It needs companion. It needs friends. So that's what you need to give to your body. Okay. When you go home, you walk away from Caesar, and now you tend to yourself, your creative part, God or life or whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. Now you tend to that. Okay. I met Cassie when she was 17. She just gravitated towards these ideas. Now, I couldn't do philosophy part-time. I said to myself, I love the stuff. I don't need to get a job. In fact, the idea of teaching was not even in my mind. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go to school, read the stuff, and if I never get a job, if I just wash cars for the rest of my life, at least I'm surrounded by ideas, and that's enough for me. Okay. And then when I was lucky enough to get a job, I realized, well, this is really fun. Not only are you able to pay rent and buy food and buy a car and just hang out with your friends talking philosophy, you have the best of both worlds. It's like everywhere I go is the world of creativity. I don't invite people who don't like philosophy. I don't even open the door to my office if people don't like philosophy. I don't talk about grades. I don't talk about, can you give me a feedback on my essay? The only feedback you need is you're just stupid, that's all. I can't make you learn, And so when I met her some 30 years ago, I said, listen, why the hell would you want to work at a coffee shop in the morning and then do philosophy at night? That doesn't make any sense. You're young enough. Just do philosophy, and then get a job in philosophy. Even if you're not very good in the classroom, who the hell cares? Once in a while, you'll be given a moment of inspiration for 5 minutes in the classroom. Now, you have no idea if you're going to be good in the classroom, as you have no idea if you're going to be good in a relationship, a romantic one, because it tests you, But even if you fail in the classroom, as being an inspiring instructor, or being a Socrates or a Plato or a Jesus Christ, once in a while you'll have moments where you just shine and you like yourself. And that's enough. That's good for a lifetime. And it also makes you some money. And it also pay the mortgage. What else do you want? So that's at least what for me is important when it comes to students. If anyone shows any interest, I just push them towards that direction. It may be a little tough in the beginning, maybe a struggle, because if you break down the word philosophy, love of wisdom, you're not going to get wisdom, but the first task is to fall in love. And you're not going to fall in love with wisdom, you're not going to fall in love with philosophy, but you're going to fall in love with the person who is giving you philosophy. If you're the instructor for this class, and I am sitting way back, and I'm looking at you and listening to you, and I feel all these tingles on the inside, philosophy is coming to life for me through you. I don't know what philosophy is. I don't know what wisdom is. I don't know what philo is, what eros is, what agape is. I don't know any of that stuff. All I know is that when Matt comes to class and opens his mouth, something about me changes, and I like those changes. Does it mean that sometimes it's painful? Absolutely. Do I like that pain? Yes. عشق در دریای غم غمناک نیست. That if you fall in love, even if he's not around, but that separation pushes you into writing poetry, sitting behind the piano, closing your eyes and playing this really sad song because he's not there and you feel homesick, that's a good place to be. You're an artist in pain, but pain pushes you into being an artist. So, yeah. Okay? Okay. Anyone else? Before we Elijah.
So when people go to their priests or to their fathers for confessionals, are they asking the Father for forgiveness or are they asking God for forgiveness?
So there are a couple of things. You ask for forgiveness because either other people have made you feel guilty for a certain action, or you were raised in a certain environment that defines certain human behavior as wrong. Okay. So, in other words, every environment creates a GPS for its members. Okay. So, if, for example, you were to be my son, let's say, and you were to be 18, and you came to me and said, Dad, I think I want to date. You know, I say, you're an 18-year-old punk. Okay? You have no education. You have no money. You have no real life training. What you're going to do is you're going to go somewhere. Attraction is going to pull you towards itself. You're going to like ruin some girl's life or some boy's life, depending on your orientation. You have no tools to be in a relationship. You know, you're not of sound mind or emotions. You're just really just a scumbag. Okay? And so there's a good chance that you're not going to listen to me. You're going to go somewhere behind my back and do A, B, C, D. And then some girl or some girl's father is going to knock on my door and say, your son did A, B, C, D to my daughter. You know, nothing bad, but just broke her heart and all those things. And then you feel shame and embarrassment. That's because in our relationship, okay, when you tell me you want to date, I say, Elijah, no. Your focus right now is just school. You can be friends, but nothing romantic. Okay? So that makes you feel guilty for having transgressed or disobeyed your father or your elders. If that is not your culture, and if this is your environment where everything is a go, it's a green light, then you're not going to feel guilt or shame. You know, not that much at least. If you're going to walk away cleanly, if your companion, the person you've broken up with, doesn't make you feel bad or feel guilty about what you've done, then you're fine. Okay. Now, let's just categorize transgression as sin. Sin basically means missing the mark. Okay? That you started this journey thinking that you'll be happy. You get to the destination only to realize you're not happy. In fact, you're miserable. You invested time, you invested money, you invested energy, you invested your life. But the conclusion is a bad one. Okay? Now, why do we do things? We do things because there is this sense in us that if you go A, B, C, D, we'll get to our destination. But most of the information that we have about ourselves and about our pursuits are profoundly limited. You have no choice. I mean, the idea that you have in Christianity that you're born in sin is profoundly accurate. We are not instinctual animals. I mean, you lose your instinctual abilities by the time you're like a year and a half, 2 years old. You're socialized. And by socialized, I mean your parents tell you what good and bad are. You look at your parents and how often they scream at each other. That becomes your moral code for relationships. How much your father drinks, how much your mom smokes, how loving they are, how dysfunctional they are. That is your GPS. Okay? So, socialized fear, becomes part of who and what we are. So the first thing you need to understand, it doesn't matter what you do, Elijah. At a certain point in your life, you will catch yourself having done a whole host of things wrong. And you need to confess. But confession can take place in two ways. You can either confess to something because you really, really, really understand, or you confess because you've been caught. If you've been caught, it doesn't mean anything. If you understand, that's the true baptism. Now, if you understand why you have done what you have done, it's something we talked about, maybe not in Buddhism, which is intentions. That I was going to give you guys a C, but with all these bribes, all this, generosity. But
Chicken. That's not sweet. You eat chicken, right?
I worked at Church's Fried Chicken in Sacramento,
I know.
but I got fired.
You was eating chicken.
No, I was taking the chickens home. They came to us frozen, So I said maybe I should just take a box with like 20 chickens in it.
Is that what you teach religion now?
Yeah, I'm confessing.
Some donuts. I know. But you can have the chicken. Some more in here. On the way up here, my husband said he was hungry. That's a trigger for me.
Is that true, Ernest? I mean, you're the husband, right?
Good woman right there.
Sorry?
Good woman right
That's a lot of fear right there.
You guys can help yourself. It's more than enough. And I got you a vitamin water.
You're very kind. Thank you. Well, are you guys hungry? Did you guys want to come up and grab yourself some chicken?
That you did,
Oh,
my fault.
Matt, well, I'm not surprised that you come up first.
I'm
Well, come on. Come up. Grab yourself some food. Look at all these vultures.
It's been a long day.
Thank you. Thank you, Ernest, Stephanie. You guys can't eat because you're having food at the house.
Trying to lose weight.
Oh, maybe from tomorrow. Tomorrow.
He's on the plate.
Oh.
I got one.
Who wants a plate? No one?
Thank you.
Did you? Joyce? E, how's the donut? Oh, Gining, hello. How are you? Sit here. This is very nice. Thank you. But most of you, your mouth is moving, so I won't ask those of you, who are eating food, any questions. Joyce, anything? You should, no, nothing? You sure? Maybe a tiny one?
I had a question. about
Sure.
religion. The main function of some of the traditions of like the Pope and gurus, and their places of worship, like the synagogue, stuff like that, and the connections they have with other religions. Or do they, do some religions, coexist, together, or do they are they always separate? In different, it's different, that's, different. I would say like the Pope, is it always just Catholics, being with Catholics?
Or do they like,
Even like, years ago, I'm talking about centuries ago, they always separate.
well, initially all you have is Catholicism.
Oh,
Then there is this revolt,
mhm.
and then you have a different branch created by Martin Luther.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about
You have Islam, there is Muhammad. The moment he dies, it fractions into two.
Mhm.
You have Hinduism, some guy doesn't like, feels as if it's not enough, so Jainism is created. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So where's the guru and all that coming in at?
So you have teachers who will teach you the letter of the law,
Mhm.
and then you have teachers who they teach you the spirit of the law. The letter of the law is always very easy because you can go to the books, you can just hear what they have to say. In Christianity, what we call is Gnosticism, that well, let me do it differently. Can I?
Mhm, sure.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out where it's all coming.
So once in a while in relationships, and it's usually women who say this, because men for the most part are visual animals and they gravitate mostly towards the physical, at a certain point in the relationship, the woman looks at you and says, can you see what's inside of me? In other words, the man has to stop being visual, he needs to be a bit more intuitive, and needs to go to places where his feet can't take him. Okay. So what you have is if you read the Gospel of, I think it's the Gospel of John or Mark or Bob, where they go to Jerusalem and they meet the head of the temple, who is, what's his name? Zerah, I think. And Jesus begins to pick a fight with him. And then Judas looks at Jesus and says, he has one of the best minds in the Jewish community. And Jesus says, forget the mind, Judas. Open your heart, not your mind. And so the heart belongs to the esoteric. That's the realm of the guru or the teachers or the spiritual teacher. Okay, the mind refers to those who just know a lot of things about the religion and just tell it to you. And they appeal to your intellect more than to your emotions.
So that like the soul and the spirit, are those two different things?
I don't know about the soul and the spirit. All I know is that
What was the line again?
the soul and the spirit, yeah, I don't know if people have souls or spirits.
Oh, okay. That's just something I've heard.
Yeah. Anyone else?
That down.
Cassie? Yeah, sure. I mean, nothing is
So,
happening here.
Theologian is that just a study of
God.
religion? Just, what is it?
The study of God.
Study of God. What did you say? I didn't hear it. Theologian. I've heard people talking about theologian, like taking on to school and different things like that.
So maybe you could talk about what
This is Cassie, for those of you who came in late.
maybe you could talk about what lives inside a really good question. I didn't hear the first one.
What's a good question? Or what lives inside a really, really good question?
Oh,
Is karma a part of religion or it's not?
What goes around comes around?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess so. It's the Hindus believe in it, the Buddhists believe in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you just feel bad about some of the things you've done, you'll eventually believe in it. Right, Ernest? Yeah.
My grandmother used to tell me if I stole from the store, eventually whatever I stole, I would end up losing it.
No. Your grandmother was wrong. It's good that you stole. Stealing is actually encouraged. It's it depends who you steal it from. You know, if you're stealing it from some small mom and pop shop, that's no good. Unless you're like really hungry. From Costco, it's okay. You know, yeah, you hold up a bank, it's okay. But some poor guy running, you know, in the street, that's sketchy.
It's like eating a cherry and like you go to the supermarket. And
Yeah, eat all you can for free.
you try a grape or
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
I eat them all the time.
Good for you. See, and she hasn't been caught. And look at her. But karma will eventually visit her. Don't worry.
Have you ever stolen anything? Well, no, I've never really stolen anything.
Well,
But is that considered stealing?
first of all, look, there is a great amount of excitement in stealing.
That's what I'm saying. I'm asking the question.
You know, it really is. I mean,
Is that considered stealing?
what you should do, look, in moments when you're bored and you feel kind of like lifeless, go to Safeway and say, I'm going with one intention. I want to like steal something. And what you'll do is from the moment you walk into the store, you look at the security guards very, very closely and carefully. Where are they? What do they look like? Do they look more like me or like them? You know? And then as you're trying to pocket something, you begin to sweat. It's like God watching you. You know, you look behind you, in front of you, to your side, and then you put it in your bag and you walk out.
Well, that's stealing.
Now, who cares?
I know, but I'm asking the question, if going in and you're trying a grape or a cherry, is that considered?
No, that's a blessing.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a gift given to you by God. You should do it.
Okay. So, because, if someone ever asked
What-
me that, I
keep-
can say, well, no, it's not stealing.
Okay, what lives inside the really, really good question?
no, I don't know that. I have another one. Put my head back down. I don't know.
Mackay? You know, despite all the chicken that she has given you, you ask some questions that, anyways, let me move on.
Can I ask you a question? Oh,
I actually do,
okay.
but it's okay. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to ask you, are there any characters from the Old Testament that you relate to, that you like?
I don't like the Old Testament and none of the characters or the New Testament.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I just thought
You don't like none of it.
You don't like none?
I just don't like anything.
Oh, okay.
That's understandable.
And by the time the class ends, I'll probably just end my life. So let me, so look. Red, how you doing?
Oh, I thought you liked the Old Testament. That's why I was.
Yeah.
Get it.
I'm getting on your nerves.
Yes?
I know we spoke about mindfulness yesterday, and so I wanted to know, like when you practice mindfulness for a long time and you're mindful about others and things that you do in the world, but then you realize that there's not a lot of people that actually practice that. Like, what do you just continue? I mean, well, continue. Like, you're being mindful of others and things and people and yourself and then you realize.
Imagine it's Valentine's, and unfortunately, you happen to be my woman. It's just a story. And it's Valentine's. So, society has put this pressure on me as a man that even though we haven't talked for weeks, I need to like go to the cemetery, look for some fresh flowers to steal, and then go to CVS and steal a card and bring it to you. Okay. What am I being mindful of? I'm being mindful of the fact that it's this ridiculous, stupid narrative created by society. Okay. Second, I am also mindful of the fact that our relationship is old. Or maybe that's just the way I feel, that I'm not really in love with you. I love you. I'm just, those fuzzy feelings, they're just no longer there. But nevertheless, I'm obligated to buy these things for you and come home, take a shower. Of course, you've taken a shower, and take you out for dinner and give you some chocolate. I am mindful of the fact that everything that I'm doing, I do it with a great amount of resentment. I really don't want to do any of this stuff. I don't want to spend money buying a card I don't really care for. Okay? I'd rather just sit with you home, make some food, and watch a good movie. Forget all this junk, Valentine and Christmas and all that stuff. Okay? So there are a couple of ways you can look at mindfulness. The way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you speak, the way you think, and the things you think about. If, for example, you want to be a great tennis player, okay, you need to be mindful of all the things you need to do in order to become a good tennis player. your racket, your coach, your shoes, where you want to play, the people you want to hang out with, okay? The food you want to eat. The next step is you being mindful of the people around you. Let's just say you are again my wife. If I don't do Valentine's for you, how are you going to feel? Is that going to make you less special, more special? Are you going to be angry, more angry, less angry? Are you going to be okay, indifferent? So not only do I have to be mindful of all the emotions running in my veins, I also have to figure out, yes, I am mindful of the fact that this is a fictitious narrative created by society imposed upon me. If I don't obey this imposition, how's that going to make you feel? Okay. But when it comes to Buddhism, when it comes to Hinduism, mindfulness is about you and your ability to perfect yourself. If, for example, your hand is going to go up to ask a question, and we're going to talk about Cassie's question in a minute, and if you come to realize that you don't really embody the question, it's just a question out of curiosity. It's not really your question. It's plagiarism. It's appropriation of sorts. So you say, so can you tell me a little bit about the life of Plato? Who gives a shit about Plato? That's not even your question. Now, if on the other hand, you can ask a very innocent question such as, can you tell me a little bit about the life of Plato? If I am creative enough, inspiring enough, and cunning enough to take your question and then reply to it in a very creative, inspiring way that also you also will be impacted by my emotions. When next time you come to class, you say, well, you know, how do I become a Plato? Okay. And what that says to me is that over the weekend you've thought about the question, but it's more than that. The question has impacted you, not just intellectually, but also emotionally. Now, what happens when a question engages you? Well, your body is not going to take you to Costco. You don't want your body to go to Costco because Costco is filled with distraction. All you want to do is be around Plato. Okay. Now, back to Cassie's question, how do you embody or what lives inside a really, really good and intense question? If I was to ask you, okay, let me create a story, and it's a story I've kind of used many times, forgive me, it's a repeat and it's kind of boring. Imagine for a moment that I am excessive in drinking alcohol. I just drink a bit too much. Sometimes my wife gives me a look, and that look tells me, you should stop. Sometimes my kids give me a look. Maybe they're brave enough to say a few things to me. And when I put my head down, I say to myself, how can I quit drinking? But it's because of the guilt I feel about the ways my wife and my kids looked at me. Maybe once in a while I look myself in the mirror. Maybe sometimes I smell myself and I smell like alcohol and I don't like it. And sometimes I do ask people, how did you stop drinking? Maybe I read books, maybe I watch YouTubes, maybe I watch gurus who talk about quitting drinking. But the truth is, I'm not really in the right stage to be serious about the question I'm asking because I'm not serious about quitting drinking. I ask it. And I do want to quit, but I'm just not very serious at this stage. And when I go to the AA center and I say, I am here because I want to quit, everybody there imagines that I'm very serious, but I'm not. They just don't know it. Okay. Now, is it true that sometimes I can deceive myself into imagining that I am serious? Yeah. Okay. Then I go home and my wife and I have a screaming argument about my excessive drinking. And she threatens me that if you don't stop, I will take the kids. I will leave. I'll go to my mom's house. You need to stop drinking. You know, you're abusive. And some people drink and become mute. Some people drink and become loud. In my case, let's just say, I'm loud. And then one day I call my mom while being drunk, and once she hears my voice and the way I speak, she just hangs up the phone. I go home and the suitcases are packed, the kids are ready to go. For the first time, I realized how serious this issue is. And at that moment, I kneel before my wife and I ask her, what do I need to do so that you could stay and not leave? I really mean it. Now, it doesn't mean I have the will or the support system to quit, but I do really mean sincerely that I want to quit. Okay. But it's a passing thing. You know, I begin to bargain with my wife, but I don't really know much about addiction. I don't know much about habits or routines. And this story just continues. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, until one day I come home and there is no one home. And I drink because I don't really know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with my past. I don't know what to do with my emotions. So, knowing that there is no one home and I'm isolated and betrayed and abandoned, at least that's what I feel, I go to the closest bar and I really drink. And I wake up in my bed, it's wet, filled with vomit and urine, and I hate everything about my life. And then I go to the AA center at 10:30 in the morning. No one's there except the guru, the person who usually guides the meeting. And I look at him, and all of a sudden, for the first time in many decades, I break down. I say, I have lost everything. I really need to stop drinking. How do I do it? What lives inside me is grief. What lives inside me is loss. What lives inside me is anger. What lives inside me is pain and sadness. So when I ask, how do I quit drinking? What my teacher sees in me is that a man who's been broken, a man who has lost everything, a man who has no self-respect, a man who has no life, a man who's completely depressed and abandoned by God, by life, by his family. There's a great amount of pain. I embody the question. That question has a tremendous amount of potency and value. If I was to ask some of you in this class, or maybe our next assignment for this class will be, write an essay about old age. And looking at this class, many of you are young, you're healthy, you haven't lost very many abilities just yet. You're filled with dreams and hopes and ambitions. You're young. It's your right to have all those things. Some of you will do some research, some of you will read some books, listen to some audios, sit for a couple of weeks and write this wonderful essay. Maybe you'll have AI generate a good essay for you. And when I read your essay, I realize, man, you know, he or she is 20, maybe 25, maybe 30. What a beautiful essay they have written. But the truth is, all you've done is string together some very beautiful words together. They sound good. If you watch that movie with Robin Williams and Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting, there is a scene where they're sitting in the park and Robin Williams looks at Matt Damon and says, I know you're a genius. You know, in the previous meeting, of course, Matt Damon had said some nasty things about Robin Williams' wife, without really knowing the backstory, which was she had cancer. He would go to the hospital every single day. Visiting hours did not really apply to him. He would stay there the entire day and night. But Matt Damon is this young, fearful kid who hasn't processed his past well. But he's a genius. You know, he remembers everything that he reads. So while they're sitting in the park, he says, if I was to ask you what love is, you would probably give me a quote from Shakespeare, you know. But you don't really know what it means to be in love with a woman with stage 4 cancer, going to the hospital every single day. And you also love this woman. And you also know that there isn't anything you can do. You're helpless. All you can do is just watch this woman scream in pain, you know. So, and almost every single one of us in this classroom have had a question that really mattered to us because you went into a relationship with a great amount of hope and dreams and expectations. You loved. You were the embodiment of this force we call love. You don't really understand it. You don't know much about it. You don't reflect on it. You don't even know what intentions you had when you first walked into this relationship. All you know is that Eros is you. And when you make sacrifices for your companion, you are agape. You are the Lamb of God. You wait by the phone. You give your money away. You give your body away. You give your time away. Okay. Then things don't pan out. And you are heartbroken. Okay. And what is the language of those who are heartbroken? You cry. You lock yourself in the room. If you happen to be religious, you pray not because you love God. You pray because you miss your companion. And ultimately, if you really, really, really embody the question, the only language, the only alphabets you have to express that question is silence. Because language is far too small and far too crude to be a good container for all of your emotions, all of your hopes and dreams that have been crushed by life. Now, what a good teacher, at least my experience has been, you know, when I was very, very young like you guys, what a good question is, I ran into this man at my mom's cousin's house. Both of their names are Hussein, you know. And, you know, it's a gathering. It's a conversation about politics and religion and the social climate of Iran. And all of us in this class want a little self-importance. So I asked some questions so I could become visible, you know. But I didn't really much care about the questions. At a certain point, this guy says, you know, every Wednesday we have gatherings at my house. You're more than welcome with your father to join us. And my father is a political junkie. I suppose every Middle Easterner is a political junkie because just everything is chaos all the time. You know, if your mom is sick, if your dad is sick, if your brothers are sick, all you think about is healthcare and sickness and how to remedy the people you love. So I remember, and I don't know how this stuff really happens. It's what they call in Persian a thief at night. I was at the car wash 6 nights into these 6 months after, into these gatherings. I'm washing this white Honda. I'm washing the hood. I look at my father and I say, you know, everything that guy talks about is true. It really is true. And I call this other guy, this Hussein, and I say, is it possible to come to your house and talk more about the stuff that you're, you know, involved with, engaged in? He says, sure. And so Initially, I go there and I ask questions. I don't really understand why I'm asking these questions, but I'm just asking these questions. And so our gatherings last for about 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 hours. Then, after about a year or two, I say, you know what? I'm just going to write my questions down. When we go to his house, and there were 3 of us, myself, my best friend Mehrdad, and my mom's cousin Hussein. We go to his house, and all of us have a notebook in hand, and all of our notebooks are like a set of questions, and we ask him. And I remember one time I asked him, what is this genealogy about in the Gospel of Matthew? I mean, what the hell is this for? Because the first book that my own teacher gave me was the 4 Gospels. And he said, your task is to memorize the entirety of these 4 books. So when you come to my house and I say Matthew 5:11, you need to tell it to me by heart. Okay? And after about 4 or 5 years, I realized that I can't write my questions down. I don't really know what I'm asking. I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking for. All I know is that I like this guy. And I like when I go to his house. And I like when I look at him. And when he's not around, I feel bad about myself and my life. I just want to be around him all the time. And all of a sudden I realized I had no questions at all. The only thing I wanted was to be in his presence. Now, the funny thing is this. Remember our conversation last night. Hussein was advertising a certain set of ideas. Initially, I was just curious. In curiosity, you don't have intense emotions. You're just curious. It's like, I'm curious about who Deborah is. I'm not at a stage where I want to stalk her, see where she lives, if she has an email, you know. I'm not there yet. I'm just curious. Who is she? Where are you from? Do you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend? How old are you? What books do you read? Just a casual, simple questions. They're really stupid, but if there is enough attraction, enough juice and excitement and inspiration, it has the potential, the possibility of me looking at Deborah, but no longer curious, but interested. And when you're interested, you ask more pointed questions. In interest, you're a bit more focused. Your attention is a bit more intense. But you're not yet committed. Why? Because there is Deborah. There's also Karen. There's also Q. Where's Q? Forget Q. There's also E, and Elijah, and Matt, and Rhett. At any time, this interest could be crushed, and another curiosity that has the potential to pique to interest can come about. If, on the other hand, my interest in Deborah grows, as it did for me with Hussein, all of a sudden you realize, you know what? I don't like to go anywhere where Hussein isn't. I still didn't understand. I still didn't want to do philosophy. I still was very confused. Now, one of the problems with the next stage, which is infatuation, is your old life no longer makes sense. It no longer grounds you. It no longer anchors you. It feels cheap. You can no longer relate to the old life. Imagine you are married, but all of a sudden you find yourself infatuated with another human being. Even though you've been married for about 5, 10, 15, 20 years, your marriage no longer makes sense to you. Because someone, a stranger, has breathed life into you, passion into you, love into you. You still don't understand it. And you feel guilty, you feel confused, you feel conflicted. And the truth is, there isn't much you can do. Up to the point of interest, you have the will to walk away. Guilt has the power to force you to walk away. Even at the stage of infatuation, you know, when you ask the person you're infatuated about, would you like to have dinner? What they don't really understand is you are emotionally involved with them now. They only hear the question, but they don't see the emotions. And they don't realize how much you miss them. They just hear the words. When you get to the point of love, which is a step beyond obsession, there is a tremendous amount of one-pointedness about you. You just want this particular person. And so all of life shrinks, and the only thing that is valuable for you is this person. And all the questions that you want to ask revolve around this person. Now that is an embodied question. It has a great amount of intensity. And the task, I think, of a really, really, really good teacher is, all of you in this class, myself included, we all have lives. Our plates are full. We have a past. We're trying to figure out what to do with our lives. You know? And then you take a class for just a stupid grade, and rightly so, because your future depends on it. Your intention was a simple grade. And all of a sudden an idea goes inside you. Why, how, when, who? Nobody knows. It's the mystery. It's a mystery. If anyone tells you that they can make you curious about something, they're lying to you. It's magic. Go back to our history. Jesus, Moses, the Buddha, Muhammad, Moses, none of those single giants could ever make anyone wise. They were all betrayed. Muhammad fought 22 battles, 40 battles, sorry. Moses, despite doing all these magic tricks for his people, felt betrayed. Jesus betrayed by 12 disciples. The Buddha came to realize most of the people have no capacity for his teachings. Lao Tzu left. Confucius created a cult. Plato would not allow anyone who was not in love with philosophy to ever enter his school. Now, all of you in this class have lives. Imagine one of these nights when we're talking about some nonsense, all of a sudden you become curious. Now, there is a part in us that desires to protect what lives inside us already. You're here for a grade. You don't want to be curious about an idea. And all of a sudden you realize your own psyche will do whatever it can to put your curiosity on the cross, nail it, kill it, and make sure it never resurrects. And despite your best attempts to kill the curiosity, you have an assignment due. This class meets 3 nights a week. And there is a reason why I have never canceled my night classes during the summer, because it's night. There is something very special about having evening classes. And as you begin to sit and listen, and knowing full well that the assignment is due on Sunday, you realize despite your best attempt to destroy the curiosity, once again it has resurrected. And now it piques your interest. And then you begin to think about it. Then you begin to talk about it with your friends. And the problem with becoming interested in these ideas and talking about these ideas to your friends and asking questions to your friends, revolving around these ideas, your friends will eventually look at you and say, listen, we came here to have a good time. Can you just shut your mouth, please? And you realize your best friends condemn you for wanting to be a bit more serious, a bit more reflective. And remember, we enjoy conformity. We like to belong to communities. So what happens? If you want to keep your friends, you get rid of the ideas that exist in your head. But as you spend more time with these ideas, you realize all of a sudden, the ideas just don't leave you alone. And the deeper they take root, the more you can relate, the more you can identify with these ideas. And then you begin to ask questions. Now, when you raise your hand in class and you ask questions, it means that there is a crack now inside your soul. That there is a slight feeling of homesickness. That you're looking for something. Now, you may not know what it is, but you're looking for something. Whether it's beauty or perfection, whatever it may be. Make things work with your companion, it matters very little. But something is oozing out of you in a form of a question. And the truth is, if you are in an emotional relationship with these ideas, your questions are always going to come out wrong. Always. And it doesn't really matter what answer anyone gives you. No answer is ever going to satisfy you because you don't really know what the hell you're looking for. You're not looking for Plato. You're looking for the thing that lives inside Plato. You're not interested in Romeo and Juliet. What you're interested in is in a love that is eternal, indestructible by space and time. You're not interested in Jesus. What you're interested is you want to be inspired. It's the inspiration. And you use Jesus as a conduit to be inspired, to come to life. Now, anyways, let me stop. Anyone else? Does that? Sure, Elijah.
How do we become less emotional in our responses?
Can you say fuck?
Yes.
Go ahead. Say it differently.
How so?
I don't know, just say it differently. That's beautiful. Vane, can you say it? Go ahead. Can you say it differently? It's okay. The past few weeks, Vane's questions have revolved around religion, about God. That's where she is. She probably lives in a physical environment that has a lot of religious symbolism. And so when I ask her to say the F word, she says it, but she says it very quietly. She feels bad for saying it. And then she turns red a little bit. Maybe it's because, she doesn't know anyone, but I don't think we are the only cause. I think her background kind of pushes her into kind of categorizing that word, especially used in a classroom, in a way that she finds it to be inappropriate, maybe blasphemous even. You, on the other hand, no. You have no moral codes about you. You're just a savage. The reason why she is the way she is because she's attached to certain ideas. And attachment always creates emotions. And those emotions guide you. When you say, no, there may come a point, maybe when she's 18 or 19 or 20, maybe for the first time in her life, she will fall in love. She'll bring this boy home to her parents. Maybe they'll love this kid too, but he's just a boy, he's just a punk. eventually that relationship is going to sour. Okay? She's going to be heartbroken. And when all the anchors fall loose, one day she's going to be in her car driving. And you know what she's going to say? She's not going to say, she's going to scream it. You know what it is? Fuck. Why is this happening to me? Like the book of Job. I don't deserve this. I didn't do anything to merit this. So when you ask, how do you become less emotional? You can be less emotional as long as you're in a relationship and you're attached and you have a history and it has meaning and value for you. Do you write essays for this class?
Yeah.
Don't write. Don't write any essays from this point on. Come to understand that this class is useless. Your essays are useless. The grade is useless. But for you to get to that place, you need to not care so much about your future and not so much about your past and what may or may not happen to you. You've come to realize it's a complete waste. That the grade doesn't mean anything to you. It's only when you understand, and it's only when that understanding creates a good amount of detachment. As long as you care, there are going to be boundaries. As long as you care, you're going to react. When you realize you don't want to be with someone and you just walk away, well, why couldn't you do that 5 years ago? When you wanted to walk away, but you couldn't, because you still had these narratives to work with. 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, you realize those stories no longer make sense for you. You don't really care for them. And even if the woman was to badmouth you left and right and put all these stuff on her Facebook page, you wouldn't care. And you don't care because you don't want to be with her. It's in detachment that you're free from the emotions. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is this. You can either understand something intellectually, theoretically, hypothetically, or you can understand something through application. It took Mike Tyson about 30 years, I think, to mature, to grow psychologically, and not react so quickly to a surrounding. The more you know, the more you understand, the less attached you're going to be. That's the only way. There are no books. There is no one out there who can help you. It's not possible. Let's say you have a girlfriend, okay? And let's say you become interested in someone in this class. It's an innocent interest. But you walk into their car, you talk with them after class for a half hour, and that slowly grows on you. And that becomes both of your habits now. Every night you walk together to the car. What happens when you go home? Well, you're less attached to your companion. You're more attached to this other person. And before you know it, you're going to walk into your environment, look at your companion and say, I don't think this is working out. Why? Because now your interest lies elsewhere. And that's how it is. Okay? And that's one of the difficulties you will have when you encounter, again, going back to my own relationship with my own teacher. The more involved you become with one person, the less involved you can be with all these other things. That's just the way things go. And it doesn't have to be very profound. It doesn't have to be like esoteric or spiritual. It can be just ordinary things. You react because there is a history about you and you like that history, and that history has given you meaning. Even if it's anger, even if you're quick to anger, there's reasons for it. You like it. I mean, imagine if you go to therapy and talk to your therapist about your father all the time. Well, shit, your father has given you meaning for the past 20 years. You've been going to this therapist's office. That's a great amount of meaning in your life. And every time your wife or your companion calls you out because you're so angry, you say, my father, let me tell it to you. What can this poor woman do? Nothing. Okay, what the hell are you doing?
Reading.
Good job. Anyone else? Yeah, everything is, yeah.
that are really like driven by those type.
Do you have children? Brother. Were you here when we were talking about Buddhism? So, one of the first things you need to know about parents, I mean, most parents, they give their kids everything. First, because it pains you when you see pain in your kids. Even if they want to buy a toy, and it's like a waste of money and a waste of time. Once they cry, you just buy it for them. Unless you have been there, you've done that so many times, you've grown a thick skin as a father or mother. Next time you take them to Target and they cry for a toy, you just smack them. You smack them really hard, kick them, punch them. Because at this stage you realize that, they're kind of spoiled and you want to get them ready for the world. But parents, for the most part, because they come out of you and you want to protect them the best you can. And you want to make sure they never suffer any pain. You don't want to see them disturbed in any way. Okay? At a certain point, you and your husband will lay in bed and you say, these kids are really, really spoiled. Really, really spoiled. So you as a parent become conflicted. There's a part of you that wants to punish the kids. There's a part of you that hates seeing the kids being in pain. And so there is this balance you have to kind of become aware of. You punch them and kick them twice a week and give them what they want like 5 days. And then you hope for the best. Sometimes it's not because parents are rich and privileged. Sometimes you realize that, and these days everybody's angry, you realize that anger gives you a great amount of privilege. Every time things don't go your way, you scream, you shout. And one of the nice things about anger is people actually get scared. Do you have children? You will eventually have a few, and one of them will be like a poison. They just happen to be like hot-tempered. Some kids are born and they look at you and say, Mom. Some kids are born, they look at you and say, what the fuck? And maybe one of your kids will be one of those, what the fuck? And it doesn't matter what you do, they're just hot-tempered. And what they begin to realize at a very, very young age is that every time they scream, you run to them. And so they mimic that throughout their lives. They're like 25, 30, things are not going their way, they scream. And their companion all of a sudden submits, surrenders. So you can be spoiled in all sorts of different ways. But, you guys are just 16, 17, what else do you expect? Hang out with older people like Stephanie and Deborah and Karen. If you hang out with them, you may be 17, but they'll make you feel really, really old. And instead of like wanting to go out with a 20-year-old, they'll say, maybe you should go out with like a 40-year-old. Have a few kids. By the time your kids are 20, he'll be like dead. And he has money and a house and a car. And, see? Politics. Anyone else? Okay. Right. Okay. So before we do Confucianism, any? Go ahead.
Talk about the value of dying.
Dying? May I change your question a little? Is that okay? You worked all day today, no? Okay. And you live in Sacramento. And you came to Oakland. And what are you doing after this? You're meeting with some people after class? Where? In Oakland. Where exactly in Oakland? I see. So you and some people are going to come over to the house. Why? Why did you travel all the way from Sacramento to come to Oakland, sit in this ridiculous class, and then come to my stupid house? For what? Why didn't you just stay in Sacramento after a long day's work? I mean, driving in traffic and driving back tonight like at 12 or 1 in the morning. Why would you want to do that? You could have stayed home, ordered some round table pizza, gourmet veggie with some garlic twists, some Coke. You sit home and you watch Conclave or Stigmata. You came here because you found it to be somewhat valuable. It still is meaningful for you after all these years. You only walk away from things when they're no longer giving you what you want. Okay? There may come a point where, you look at life and you say, something I said a couple nights ago. So, as you can no doubt tell, it now takes me a while to kind of just become engaged in the class. I'm beginning to lose interest a little. Not too much, but a little. Okay? And I look at my life and it's been okay. There isn't much else I want to do. I have no desire to see my kids like graduate from high school or graduate from college. I have no desire to see my wife get remarried. I have no desire to kind of bury my parents. I don't want to buy a house. I don't want to buy a car. I don't want to write another book. It's been a relatively okay life. When you realize that there isn't much out there for you anymore, in some ways you're ready and you accept. Now it may happen that even though you may be ready to die, you may go to the doctor because of a migraine and you may be diagnosed with some tumor. And all of a sudden you will fight to continue living because that's what we do as the sort of animals that we are. You begin to appreciate health. You begin to appreciate your family, And so there could be some hiccups despite the fact that you've claimed to be ready. So the point of it is, as long as life has things to offer you, you're fine. When life ceases to nourish you, then, you're just waiting for death to come your way. What was his name? Joseph Campbell was a mythologist, a really good one too, even though he wasn't much respected in the academic world. He was a genius, really. Anyways, so anyone else does that? Maybe not. I'm sorry. Matt? No? Okay. No one? Stephanie? Elijah? Joyce? Elliot? Right? Did you ask a question already? Oh, Stephanie? Ernest?
Talked about.
Yeah, yeah.
Talked about saying a lot.
The what?
Talked about saying a lot.
Uh-huh.
Trying to get a grasp on what person or teacher was to talk about in the audience.
Yeah. Some people fall in love with inmates, those who have committed horrific crimes, but they fall in love with them. And so if you were to ask them, how, why? I just fell in love, you know. And regardless of who you fall in love with, you will become a poet. It matters very little whether you love Satan or God. They both eventually demand that you worship them. And in the act of worship, whether you're worshiping Satan or God, you want answers from them. You want them to help you in times of need. Okay? So, it may be that Hussein, resurrects from the dead, comes to this class, you look at him and say, nah, he kind of looks useless and is not very interesting. Okay? And that's exactly how I felt when I started teaching and beginning to understand things in my own way. Sometimes after, the 30 years after, he just became a family friend. Whenever he spoke, I would just walk away because I didn't find his ideas to be interesting or useful. So there is this period that you have, and it's a great period, and it's one of those events in life that something about you opens, and you don't know how long it's going to stay open. It could close after 2 months, it could close after 5 years. Okay? My position is if you can keep it open for as long as you possibly can, you're very, 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 very lucky. Because if that thing closes, it's like when you fall in love with someone and something happens to them or there is no closure in that relationship, whether it's a breakup or they die, whatever the case may be, they leave a mark inside you, and that mark will never go away. Okay? Now, I was a kid. I was only, 18 or 19. Okay. One of the things you need to understand about 18, 19-year-old kids, they're open to possibilities. You don't come to class saying, I've decided I want to be a geologist. When you're young, you're impressionable. Everything out there is trying to sell you something. Okay? So you have to be profoundly lucky to run into someone who can give you something that can last a lifetime. Because most things have a very short shelf life. Okay? So, in the 10 years of working with this man, I found everything about him to be interesting. And it's forgive me for telling you this, it's quite awful and quite raunchy and quite naughty, but I will tell it to you nevertheless. When you become interested in someone, it doesn't matter if it's like a teacher or a romantic relationship, you want to get to know everything about them. It's natural and it's organic. I mean, everything, inside and out. So, if you remember when you fell in love, for example, and your companion left because you stayed over the night, and she leaves to get some croissants or some donuts or whatever, you start going through her closet and her drawers to see just how she lives, and because they are an extension of who and what she is, right? So one day Hussein comes, this is after he closes shop, and he says, let me just go wash up, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, myself, Mehrdad, and Hussein are sitting, and he comes back and he's wearing jammies. And there is this hole right in the middle of his pants. I know it's disgusting. It's awful. It really, really is. It's really bad. Okay. And I don't think he was aware of it. Okay. And so he just comes and sits, and he sits like Persian style, you know. I would show you what the Persian style is, but I would have to take off my pants. So I'm not going to. No, I'm just kidding. You guys are so serious. Come on, lighten up. And so, and you know, and you say, his ideas are humongous, they're profound. And his personality is giant and profound. I wonder if other parts of his life are giant and profound. Now you laugh and you find it to be disgusting. But that's not true. It's not disgusting. If you love someone and they leave part of their clothing in your house, what the hell do you do with it? You take it and you put it next to you on the bed and you smell it. You say, that smells like shit. I'm just kidding. But the point I'm trying to make is that it becomes a totem. And by totem, I mean the following. You go to In-N-Out and it's just you. And all you want to do is just go through the drive-thru, get yourself a number 2, and you know what a number 2 is. Cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke. Comes to be about $11.95. And then the person to whom you're giving your money has a tag. It says Jill. And you look up. She's beautiful. Say, Jill, what are you doing after this? Nothing. I was waiting for you, Rhett, she says to you. It's your first meeting. And you guys fall in love. And you get married. And as she's walking to Safeway to get some milk, she gets run over by a bike and she dies. But every day when you go to work, you pass by In-N-Out. And every time you pass by In-N-Out, memories begin to flood your interior. And then you park your car for a few seconds or a few minutes, you sit, and you take your imaginations back in time. Say, I went through the drive-thru some 20 years ago. I still remember what she was wearing. I still remember that she smelled like In-N-Out. But I still loved her. You know, a totem becomes the center of the world. It becomes a temple. It becomes a worship place. It's a place where you found meaning, identity, relevance, where you find God. That's totem. You know, and everything about it is sacred to you. So when Hussein came and sat with his broken pants, you look at this man and everything about this man is sacred. Until it ceases to be. So, is it time to go? What time is it? It's 8? Okay, we have like an hour. Ernest, yeah, Rhett. You can only have one teacher. But what usually happens is you work with someone, you will lose interest in them, but they've made you a student. And because you're a student, you're always seeking, you're always looking. You'll find other people, some people very interesting, and you begin to kind of become a student of them. Okay? But remember that the person who made you, wasn't your second teacher or the third or the fourth or the fifth. It was the first one. Okay? So it took about maybe 35 years for me to understand all the things that that man gave me. When you're 18, you're confused. You have no idea where your life is going to take you. Everything about you just smells bad. Someone walks in and gives you a GPS. And the only way he can kind of tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, if you like them, if you love them. And once you love them, the only thing you want to do is make sure you don't disrespect them. You don't disappoint them. And that's the key. If you fear disappointing your dad, you will always do what your dad wants you to do. That leads you to success. Always. Of course, if your father is relatively mentally sound and healthy and all that. Yeah.
Do you choose your teacher?
No.
Or do they choose you?
Oh, it's neither. It's none of those things. I mean, it is, but it's not. You have young teachers and you have older teachers, or novice teachers and seasoned teachers. Novice teachers are like when you're 18 and you go to a party and any man with good looks will work. You hang out with them a few times, emotions are created, love is generated, and then you realize he's a piece of shit, but because you love him, you try to fix him. 10 years later, you realize he's just not fixable and you walk away. Okay? That's a novice relationship. Someone who's a bit more seasoned says, I've been in relationships, 5 or 6 of them. Now at this stage, I know what questions to ask. I know what qualities I'm looking for. I know what sort of a life I want to have. Now when you go to a party, you look at people, you're looking for specific things. So it's always more difficult for seasoned teachers because they're always looking for specific qualities and attributes in another. If you're novice, anybody will work. Now, yeah, so, and there is no how to, I can't tell you where to go to find someone. It doesn't work that way. It's like any other relationship. Yeah. Matt?
So I've heard a few times about like coaching lineages, like your coach's coach, and kind of having a reverence for them as well as, it sounds kind of BS to me. Like I appreciate that my teacher had such a great teacher, but I really don't give a shit about that dude. I care about my teacher.
It's true. Yeah.
Which is true. Like, because like it seemed to me, I think like respect and reverence for your teacher and whoever taught them really doesn't matter.
Because you don't really have a relationship with your teacher's teacher. You have a relationship with the guy you're working with or the gal you're working with. As long as you have a relationship with one but not the other, it's true. And the idea that you can't serve 2 masters, it's also very, very true. You can't be a Christian and a Buddhist at the same time. It doesn't work. Unless you're just stupid. Because the Buddhists don't believe in sin. Because Buddhist teaching is completely different. If you want to be a Buddhist, you need to rewire the way you think about things. If you want to be a Christian, you can't be a Buddhist and vice versa. It doesn't work. And I think eventually every teacher who has found his or her voice has a teaching that's just unique to them, for them. And so every teacher teaches the same thing in a different way. So, yeah. Yes, okay.
I kind of don't like the idea of not letting everybody.
You can't. Look. What you do first is you learn the alphabets. Then you will learn how to put the alphabets together to make simple words. And then you'll make simple sentences. Then you'll probably make or read simple paragraphs. And then as you move through life, you begin to have certain interests. And then you read books about the things you're interested in. And you hang out with people who are interested in the same things. Okay? The idea that you can learn from everyone and everyone has something interesting to say or share, and you can sit back, listen, absorb, process, take the good, get rid of the trash. You can do that. But you have to be very, 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 very advanced. I mean, that stage of being able to improv things, you and I aren't there yet. Right now, you need to learn how to think. Okay? But before you can learn how to think, you need to feel emotionally connected to someone. Okay? The only thing you will know how to do is just feel intensely. Okay? But mentally, you'll be profoundly confused. Then little by little, you will learn how to hone your emotions in reflection. Then you will learn how to think. But you still don't know how to talk. Because your thoughts, your reflections, and your emotions need to fall into language. And then, Karen, and then you have to kind of speak. You have to use a sort of language that is articulate and clear and eloquent, that expresses your language, your thoughts and your emotions. That's going to take you a while. Okay? And then you realize you have no longer any need to kind of read things or to listen to things or to talk to people about things. Now you just go and you walk around. Now you can learn from everything that you see. But that's after when you have this digestive ability, that everything that comes your way, you're able to kind of break it down, process it, take what you need, and get rid of the things that you don't like. And can I just be that's just a fucked up thing to say. That you don't like the idea of like not learning from everybody. First, because people don't really have much to give you. The truth is, we're not good at anything. Okay? I mean, if you want to like learn mediocre things, fine. That's okay. But if you want to learn like things done by proficient people,
But I mean, specifically that statement of like learning your teacher and learning their teacher.
no, because you as long as you don't have an emotional relationship with another human being, you can't learn from them. You can hear them, but you're not interested. I mean, it's like some of your questions, when it just goes on and on and on, I say, what the fuck? What am I?
What about your grandfather?
What about my grandfather? He's dead.
Yeah, but would you have liked to have a conversation?
No.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my grandparents died early. So I'm the youngest of like three. Like, anyways, to cut a long story short, is I didn't get to experience a lot of the time with my parents and my other family. So if I could have maybe talked to them more or experienced them more, I think that might have been fun. I was seeing my father came to me, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but
They say I look like him. So.
there's something wrong with you. Stephanie is looking at me saying, what is wrong with that guy?
I just was listening to the part about basically having emotional intelligence. And once you receive the emotional intelligence on yourself and composing yourself and your thoughts, once you receive that and you find someone that you want to learn from, your emotional intelligence should tell you at some point you should stop before you get infatuated or before you get strongly connected. I would think that. It's like if, for example, if a man knows he's attracted to many women, but he's been told one woman he's going to be faithful to her, his emotional intelligence should say, I'm not gonna go in a room full of beautiful women because I'm gonna get in trouble. That's like emotional intelligence. That's like,
No, it's just called fear. Look,
that may be true, but I would think, you would think, it's kind of like your question about how do you stop being an alcoholic. You have to at some point have the emotional intelligence to say, hey, this is good. I'm gonna stop. You have to want it.
there are some emotions that are organic that throughout our history, consider for a moment greed. Okay. Now, you would think that greed is bad, okay? But consider the following. When we first landed on this planet, we were naked. There were no safeways, okay? We're victims to basically life. At any moment, you could be devoured by a rat, by a mouse, by a lion, okay? Food was scarce, okay? And this continued for thousands, if not millions of years. In other words, your biology was programmed by nature. It gave it this intelligence that, look, and you don't have to be aware of it, it just happens automatically, that look, there's a reason why you have a fridge in the kitchen and you have a fridge in the garage. At any time, you could lose your job. Now again, you may not be completely fully aware and conscious of these things, but that's what lives inside your organism, that life is dangerous, things can be taken away. Also, human beings are frail. We suffer from one of the sins called sloth. If you have no bread in your fridge in the kitchen, but if you bought 10 loaves of bread, you have 9 in the fridge in the garage, go get it. We do these things because of biology, because of our history as human beings. Greed is good. Now, greed can be categorized as bad or negative once it begins to impose itself on other people. Okay? Being attracted to other women, that's organic. There's just something about us as human beings. You know? I mean, look, you are in love with Ernest, fine. But once in a while you go somewhere and someone begins to sing and their voice is like magic. And all of a sudden you realize through their voice you become attracted to this man. Now you can't condemn yourself and you can't punish yourself for having become attracted. Now if you're a Christian, remember there's a huge difference between Moses and Jesus. Moses says, look, but don't touch. Jesus says, well, you can't even look. You can't even think. What he's basically saying, don't be human. Go against everything that's in your biology. And the truth is, for most of us human beings, which are commoners and just normal, that's not possible. I mean, those ideas may be good for his disciples and his followers, but not for someone like me. And the other thing you need to understand about attraction is that whenever you're attracted to someone, it means that there is this element of beauty that's involved. Do you know what happens when you find yourself in the presence of beauty? You become more than a piece of meat, Stephanie. It's not just sleeping with the guy or sleeping with the gal. Beauty is something profoundly sacred. You begin to worship it. Now, it may be at a certain point, it just becomes a piece of meat, fine. But initially, it connected you to some sacred place that you can't see or touch or taste. Now, granted, given that our needs, which are plenty, we need to safeguard what little we have in life. And so we create these other emotions or sub-emotions. You know, that if I see you looking at another human being, I'm going to be a little jealous. If I catch you looking at this person a bit more, I'm going to become angry. And then who knows where things will go, you know. And you don't do it because you're possessive. You do it because, you know, you've created a history with this person for many, many, many decades and you don't want to lose it. And a good portion of who and what you are lives inside this other person. What was that? Anyone else? Yeah. That's it? All right, let me, go ahead, Red. We don't have time, just say it. Look, either way, it's not going to come out right, so just say it.
Can there be, can there be love without the attraction of physical?
Yeah.
And not just like your mom or your dad, but someone that you feel
A partner?
that, or I don't know, maybe it's
Like, I'm attracted to your mind, but physically, I don't want to have sex with you? No. No, that's not possible. I mean, look, when it comes to like companionship, you know, the idea of just looking at this person and saying, wow, you have such a nice voice. I want to marry you just for your voice. People have needs, man. You know? I mean, you can't. Yeah.
what about falling in love with somebody's personality first? And like there's cases where people don't find a person attractive. Right?
Then it's not going to last.
Well, you say nothing's gonna last. So.
Oh, fuck. No, that's not, that's not what I meant. I mean, just because nothing lasts, it doesn't mean you should like jump from a cliff, you know? You know, you can't like have your wedding vows. This is not going to last, honey, but I'll marry you nevertheless. Who's going to marry you with that particular outlook? Some of the things that you know to be true, which is nothing will last, you just keep to yourself. That's your own secret. And in, you know, moments where you and your companion are in bed naked after you've done it and both of you are comfortable, you know, they say, honey, do you know nothing is going to last? And she's going to look at you and say, yes, 5 minutes ago we were like this. Right now you're sleeping. I know, yeah. Did you guys get that? Jesus Christ, you guys. The only person who got it is Micah. I mean, Mackay. My son. Look, if you're talking about me and you, it's never going to get physical. But there is going to be. Why are you guys laughing? Huh.
What did you say?
Hey, he wants things to get physical. I'm telling him no. I'm just kidding. Look. One of the things that I think is important, but we won't really talk about in this class or any of my classes, is that you need to have a better understanding and a greater appreciation of the human body, because you can use it as a tool, and it's a great tool to be used. It really, really is. I mean, look, when the water heater broke, the only thing I could think about is, well, my kids are going to wake up and they need to like wash themselves, and then you just need to have some hot or warm water, and it's not available. And you know what I did? I carried this body into a car, and the car carried myself and my worries to Home Depot, and I used my body to make sure my kids are okay. There are some things in life that can only be communicated through the interaction of physical bodies. Nothing else can replace it. But because of our, I think, all sorts of taboos that we have placed on sex, on human body, especially Christianity, to the extent that Jesus was born of a virgin, that he wasn't an act, sexual creation. You know, God comes down, looks at Mary and says, "You're pregnant." That's it. You know, and this country was based on Puritan philosophy. There is something evil about human flesh. You know, but once you become interested in these ideas, you know, if you ever do become interested, you realize that there is more to sex than just two bodies grinding against each other. So, yeah. Yeah.
When, when two people get into a romantic relationship, do they stay in it for love or do they stay in it because they respect each other?
Do you like snakes?
Not really.
But you respect snakes, right? If like one is walking towards you or flying towards you, you respect them?
Yeah.
Why? Let's say a cobra. You respect it? Why?
Should I be afraid?
Because it can kill you. What? Jesus Christ, what is this, Berkeley? Why do you give me these hippie ideas, man? Look, you like your life. You have a future. There is a cobra. And for some strange reason, the cobra is attracted to you. Wants to like lick you and then bite you. You respect the cobra because there's a history you have with poisonous snakes. Because how they can obstacle your life, how they can end your life, how they can obstacle your future. You understand it. And that understanding allows you to have a good amount of respect for the serpent. It's called fear. You don't understand our relationship. You can't respect our relationship. This snake has a lot of power that you don't have. You can grab that chair and bang it on the cobra's head. That's the only power you got. And you do so because you respect your life and you are fearful of the serpent and its power. When you talk about romantic relationships, the only respect you will ever have is the first time you screamed at your woman and you went to bed hungry, and it wasn't even the bed, it was the sofa. Next time you won't scream, not because you respect her. Because if you piss her off, you'll be on the sofa again, and you'll go to bed hungry. And if you have any maturity about it, you say, well, that's not really a way that a man should speak to a woman. Anyways. Respect comes with a good amount of understanding. Understanding takes time. You know, something my father always says, if I knew in my 20s what I know now, I would have washed all the dishes, I would vacuum the house, so that your mom can do less work. She could relax a bit more. But understanding usually comes very, very late in life. The other thing you need to, I suppose, be mindful of in romantic relationships, it starts with lust. Not understanding, with lust. For most of us, if not all of us. Lust is the great motivator. Lust drags your sorry behind to the person. Lust forces you to open your mouth and begin to speak nonsense. What's your name? You're so cute. Your lipstick. What exactly is the name of that color? Who gives a shit? But you speak nevertheless of those things because you want to be around this person. Your shoes, are they Gucci or Mucci? That's what we all do. It begins with lust. And then lust ultimately finds its fulfillment through sex. I mean, sure, initially it's like you just gaze into each other's eyes, and then you hold hands, and then you just like do all this ridiculous foreplays, and then there's penetration, and then that's it. Then emotions grow, then you say, oh, well, can I call you my girlfriend? Yeah, fine. Okay. And with those emotions come responsibility, Valentine's, there's an element of shame, there's an element of guilt, of responsibility, but you still don't understand your companion. And the other thing you need to also get is people never understand anyone. I mean, your interior is really quite solitary. You're just on your own. Your companion is there for some light conversation. Once in a while you want to vent, but again, when you vent, your emotions can't be fully contained in language. Add to the fact that language has layers. So what you tell me is always going to be interpreted in my mind in a way that fits my organism. And I'm not going to be patient or have the capacity to say, is this what you mean? Is this what you mean? Is this what you mean? I'm not looking for clarification. The best thing anyone can do is know the frailty of being human, know your needs, find the right person who can nourish, feed you those needs. At the end of the day, know that you're going to be extremely, profoundly alone. Because life is going to beat you up, and in pain, you're always going to be alone. If you're lucky, once in a while, you will have the language and the right companion to say a couple of things to them. And they will help you just lighten the load a little. But in serious stuff, you're always alone. And once in a while, you just kind of look at your wife or look at your companion and say, raising 5 kids and, having 5 jobs and doing all this, it's not easy. She's a really good woman or he's a really good man. But that takes a long time for you to take a pause, look behind you, see the big picture, and then say, you know what? I should take this person a bit more seriously. And that's, by this stage, the sex is no longer that interesting. It's not priority. It's all the other stuff. Anything? Is it 8:30? We have some donuts left. We have some chicken left. We have some empty boxes that need to be taken outside. It's good to see all of you. Thank you again for the food. Have a nice weekend. Stay safe. Stay in touch.
Is there an empty box?